All right. Well, you know what? Let's jump in and let's get started as we kind of work out our whole thing. Man, it is great to see you all here. Uh, Friends and neighbors. So let me do this before we get started. Since we are in a time of COVID and we all crave connection, if you can keep your camera off, but if you feel inclined, because I'd like to see you all's faces, you could take the camera off and we can see people, and then it feels like we're actually talking to human beings. It helps me, I know, as opposed to seeing someone's name. And also, just a quick note: we're recording this for posterity, so um, we will keep our cursing down to a minimum. Um, Man, it's great to see we got people from Hayrim. Hayrim's on. She's a pianist, teaches at Berkeley in Boston.
I know her. I think I
Hello.
I did a gig with her. How you doing? I did a gig with her in Boston for one of those.
Nice.
I forget what it was
Yes,
for.
we did on a festival,
Yeah,
Bintown Festival, years ago.
yeah, I remember.
You remember? Nice to see you, Robin.
Good to see you.
Thanks for coming. We got Chris Rochester here, saxophonist, director of Global Music Initiative.
How's it
We
going, man?
good, good, good. Thanks for coming. We got some Brandon music folks in the house. So thank you all for being here. So look, we'll get started. It is. I do not exaggerate when I say it is an incredible thrill, honor to be interviewing this person who is, for starters, a longtime friend. Known each other for too many years now, scary number of years now. He's a mentor to me. I think of him as a brother. Um, I would have to say older brother. um, uh, Someone I was lucky enough to play in his band for many years, about 7 or 8 years in the 90s. I learned a lot, and I can't even begin to describe the experiences, and probably some of those I probably shouldn't describe. Uh, but Robin Eubanks, for starters, is truly, truly one of the greatest trombone players in the history of jazz. That's for starters. There's no question about that. I remember, and I'll just share this before we launch into the conversation. I remember maybe one of the first tours we did, and I was scared as hell. And we were playing in Belgium, I think, and the promoter was a big jazz radio DJ, had the biggest jazz collection in the world, and was introducing Robin. And he was talking about Robin's history and how incredible of a musician he was. And I knew most of this. I mean, I'm in the band. But then he went on to describe Robin as uh, the innovator that he was. He's talked about Robin innovating in terms of electronics, in terms of music, in terms of the styles he could play. And I was sitting on the piano listening to this. I was getting scared, man. I was like, "Oh shit! I didn't know. Oops, already blew it." I was like, "Oh man, I didn't know that I was playing with this dude." you know, I thought I was playing with this dude named Robin. That promoter is absolutely right. That is truly who Robin is. So, Robin, thank you for being here, man. I love you. It's just great to see you again. And I can't wait to get into it. So, everybody, big round of applause for Mr. Robin Eubanks, the one and only.
What's up, Mike?
Yeah, man.
Good to see you in a long, long, long time.
Crazy long, too long.
Last time I think remember seeing you physically was in Las Vegas, maybe. Does that be
That's
possible?
right. That's right. You were playing at that beautiful space. You were with, that
Oh
was
yeah,
with the Sanford,
SF
yeah,
Jazz
SF Jazz
Collective.
Collective. Yeah, yeah. That was a great gig. That was a great show. You all sounded great. I think
Uh,
you might have seen my mom too. Somehow my mom did my mom come in on that, or I think my
sounds
mom was talking
familiar.
about meeting you at the same some. I don't know if I was there, but that is the last time we saw each other. Antonio Hart. That was a
Mm.
great band. Man, well, Robin, I got a ton of questions for you. I've actually wanted to do this forever. But I know you just said as we were getting started, you're in Philly, which is your home. And anytime I'm talking to a musician like yourself, I'm always really curious about the beginning. So maybe we can just start there. I'm like really curious about like your earliest. I know you came up in a musical family. I'd like to hear about that. But can you talk to us about like when you first started remembering hearing music? You know, what are some of your earliest memories of music, and how did you get into this?
Uh, I always tell people I heard music before I was born,
Hmm.
because my mom is a musician, and she was a music teacher in the Philadelphia school system for many, many years, and a choir director for church and stuff. So I was hearing music in her belly up against the piano, and there's music all over the place from when we was growing up. And um, my dad owned the apartment building that we grew up in, and the neighbors was my mom's brother was Ray Bryant, the well-known jazz pianist,
Yep.
and her other brother Tommy Bryant,
Hmm.
and they were part of the Joe Jones trio.
Hmm.
So Papa Joe Jones used to come by because Ray used to live up on the second floor of this apartment building that my dad owned,
Hmm.
and so a lot of musicians used to come by there. I didn't even realize it. And I was like really, really young.
Yeah.
I mean, low single digits.
Yeah.
And Ray's family lived upstairs on the second floor. Ray didn't even have a piano. He used to come downstairs to practice on my mom's piano.
Wow.
And Papa Jones used to be there because they were Ray and Tommy, my mother's brothers, were was the bass player and pianist for the Joe Jones trio.
Hmm.
And they also played on the Eternal Triangle album with Dizzy Gillespie and Sonny Stitt.
Hmm.
So there's music all over my family.
Hmm.
And I just did an interview recently for this trombone magazine, and they asked me similar questions. And you know, growing up when I was a little kid, my parents used to take us to see live music. I remember seeing James Brown and Stevie Wonder playing at was a place called the Uptown in Philadelphia, which was their Philadelphia's version of the Apollo.
Hmm.
So I used to hear music and see live bands all the time, and my mom, you know, was just really supporting all the music. Actually, also my mom was Kenny Barron's first piano teacher.
Unreal.
So, and all these people know Benny. I was talking with Benny Golson. Benny Golson used to tell me about how he used to hang out with my uncles, with Ray and Tommy, and all kinds. He told me all kinds of stories, Benny.
Hmm.
And Benny this is another. Benny was like really into my mom. He came to when I was teaching at Oberlin.
Hmm.
Benny came to do a master class, and you know the whole jazz department's there talking, and Benny was talking about my family and everything, and Ray, and he said, "And your mother." He said, Robin, you don't know how bad I wanted to be your father. I didn't even know what to say. Everybody's head swung around.
Right. Right.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And then Kevin told me a story that
Mm.
Benny told him that
Mm.
he was like kind of infatuated with my mom a little bit,
Hmm.
and he was like really into her. They said, then along came Betty, and that's what he wrote. That's
Oh
the title of that.
man, crazy! Wow,
So, I didn't know about that. Kevin filled me in on that part.
wow, wow.
So anyway, I come from a very musical family.
Oh my God. That's just unbelievable to be surrounded by so many folks like that. It's just unreal.
Yeah, I don't remember Benny when I was a kid,
Hmm.
but he apparently he was around. He told me that he was around at when my grandfather died, that he was holding the umbrella over my grandmother's head and all this kind of stuff. And,
Mm-hmm.
just the association with my uncles and everything. And,
Mm-hmm.
in Philadelphia just has such a rich tradition of
Mm-hmm.
musicians. And,
Mm-hmm.
Heath brothers, Jimmy Heath. Actually, Jimmy Heath and I have the same birthday,
Mm-hmm.
October 25th. And Brecker brothers from Philly. And
Mm-hmm.
actually,
Mm-hmm.
Art Blakey had a whole band from Philadelphia
Hmm.
with Lee Morgan and Benny
Mm-hmm.
Golson and Bobby Timmons and Jimmy Merritt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's still people, coming up, Orrin Evans. Well, I guess he's
Mm-hmm.
not coming. He's kind of established. And
Mm-hmm.
there's drummers. There's all kinds of people still coming up from Philly. Chris McBride's from Philly and
Yep.
Joey DeFrancisco. And
Yep.
it just goes on and on. McCoy Tyner. And
Yeah.
so there's a very rich musical tradition in Philadelphia. And, we're a part of it for sure.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it's,
definitely. Yeah. It's.
yeah.
I mean, your family history, you with that, and the uncles, everything. It's just unreal. So if your mom was playing piano, like what brought you to the trombone? Was that your first instrument or?
Yeah. Um, I was in fourth grade, and it was around this time of year, I guess around December, and some two kids came in playing Christmas carols, one playing trombone and one playing trumpet. And I was a very curious little kid, and I was like 8 years old, and on all the other instruments, because I told you I used to see live music all the time.
Mm-hmm.
James Brown and Stevie Wonder and all the Joe Tex and all these other bands at the Uptown.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you see all the other instruments, you can see that they're either fingered or bowed or struck
Yeah.
something, and you can see how to kind of look at it and see how they're playing it. But on a trombone, all you see is an arm moving back and forth.
Yeah.
And I was curious because I couldn't figure it out by looking at it. And I saw these guys who were playing Christmas carols. So I'm watching this guy move his arm around. I was like, "What? How's he doing that?"
Yeah.
So the last day of school, they asked me if I wanted to pick an instrument to take lessons over the summer and then come and join the band and orchestra in September. So out of curiosity, because I couldn't figure it out by looking at it, I chose the trombone.
And did you like say, "Oh, this is the instrument for me"? Was it love at first
I just,
sound?
it was just something to do because I wanted to play baseball. So I would just play practice during the school year, and then for the first 6 years, I was just playing. I would only play it during the school year, and then in the summer was like time off. I could play baseball. Then I
Hmm.
pick it up again, and then later on, I started getting a little more serious about it. And when I started, we had a little band that we put together. I think Kevin was playing in it, and we did a gig, and I was like, "Whoa, I can make money doing this." And then everything changed.
Right.
I was like, I can make money playing a trombone.
Yeah.
So so then I started playing in bands and things like that, and then in high school I started playing in bands, and then when I was like 15, because I started playing when I was 8, and then I did for 6 years. I was just doing it during the school year, but all the lessons were classical
Hmm.
lessons. And because I
Hmm.
wasn't playing any jazz, I wasn't improvising at all. But
Hmm. Hmm.
people started. Chicago was like a popular band at the time, and
Hmm.
all the horn bands back then, the Kool and the Gang, Earth, Wind and Fire,
Hmm.
and Drill, and all the bands, Blood, Sweat and Tears,
Yeah.
Cold Blood,
Yeah.
all the bands had horns.
Yeah.
Everybody had horns. So this was a cover band that was playing. They asked me to join in high school, and I was making money playing. And then uh, I joined this neighborhood band. Back then, in Philadelphia, every neighborhood had bands, had
Hmm.
like at least two or three bands, and we played every weekend. It was a live music scene was very, very vibrant.
Hmm.
And I was like 15, playing in clubs that you had to be 21 to
Hmm.
enter.
Hmm.
So I had a lot of fun.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And it just opened up a whole nother world for me that I didn't have access to before,
Yeah.
because I was playing music and I was studying music. I was taking study for those, even from when I first started, for the first 6 years, just doing trombone lessons and music theory lessons, and I was playing in the brass ensemble
Hmm.
led by this trumpet player. I think might have been principal trumpet player for the Philadelphia Orchestra, named Sigmund Herring.
Hmm.
But so I had good teachers, that's for sure, and I was really building a strong foundation just in terms of playing the trombone.
Hmm.
Then I started playing in music, playing in bands and making money, meeting girls and stuff. It was
Hmm.
like, wow, the music thing is not bad. Getting paid and
Yep.
notoriety, and around the neighborhood. Because our band was kind of popular in the area, so in Philadelphia, so we used to play for proms and all these dances and cabarets they used to have.
Hmm.
So, like I said, all the bands would play every weekend, and we would all meet each other at this diner at like 3 in the morning,
Hmm.
and it was a really vibrant community.
Hmm.
And being naive and ignorant, I thought it was gonna be last forever, and it was
Hmm.
great. And then disco came on and wiped it all out.
Oh man,
All
is
the
that
whole
right? So when
yeah,
disco came on the scene, it just like that changed the whole live band dynamic.
obliterated it, because
Wow.
instead of hiring a 8 or 9 piece band, you could hire one person with records.
Yep.
So it just became a whole, economics thing. So
Yeah.
the promoters, they could just, you know, hire one guy as
Hmm.
DJ, and he just played all the disco songs,
Hmm.
and disco was new, and it was in Philadelphia. Philadelphia, I mean, was the disco capital.
Hmm. Yeah.
MFSB and all that stuff was in Philadelphia.
Oh,
Philadelphia.
definitely.
So it was, in Philadelphia, I was, had like the OJs and
Right.
all those Philly International Records, and later on, I actually did a lot of those recordings, because all my teachers, when I was in college at what's now called University of the Arts in Philadelphia, they were all in doing the recording sessions,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to sub for my teacher
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. So I did like recordings for like the OJ's records, and Patti LaBelle and Teddy Pendergrass, because Teddy
Mm-hmm.
Pendergrass is from Philly
Mm-hmm.
also. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was, very vibrant time.
Yeah.
And there was just music happening everywhere. And I was, and then it's the reason I got into jazz was because in our funk band, we had a band called, first band was in called Pitch Black. And then the next band was called Sundown. And then sundown, they was give us all these the horn players would get solos
Yeah.
because people were dancing, and we
Yeah.
had to stretch the song out.
Yeah.
And I was so sad. I said, "Oh." So I went to the record shop to find recordings, any kind of recordings that had a trombone on it.
Mm.
So I could learn how to improvise.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a J.J. Johnson album called The Eminent J.J. Johnson. I had never heard him before, but I heard his name.
Mm-hmm.
And found another album that had Curtis Fuller on it, playing an Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers record, Thermo. And then I found the Jazz Crusaders album with Wayne Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the three albums I got. And I put the J.J. Johnson album on because he was the only one I heard of before. So I heard he's good. So I put it on. And this album was called The Eminent J.J. Johnson. And the first song, a song called Turnpike. It had Clifford Brown, Jimmy Heath, I think Kenny Clark. And this trombone solo he played was so killing. And I was like, he sounds good, but he's playing a valve trombone. And then I looked in the cover, and it was a slide trombone. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
It scared me so much. I put the album away for a month. No way I'd ever be able to do that. I was like, that's not about trombone.
Yeah.
So I took it out about a month later. I put it away and I was listening back to my Chicago records, something I could deal with. James Brown records, because Fred Wesley was playing a James Brown. So I could deal with that a little bit. I could play some of those, but the stuff that JJ was playing, I was not ready for.
Right.
And then I pulled it out back a month later when I got the nerve to listen to it again. Said, okay, I got some work to do. So I went to work, started learning it. So I started slowly getting better at improvising, so I could take a solo in my funk band and not embarrass myself too badly. Then we just slowly started getting better and better at it. And then in high school, last year in high school or something like that, the last couple of years, because I discovered the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and with John McLaughlin and Billy Cobham and Jan Hammer and Jerry Goodman on violin and Rick Laird on bass.
Yeah.
And that's when I discovered odd meters.
Yeah.
And listening to this stuff, and I couldn't tap my foot to it. I was like, where's one? I had no idea what to do. And then I started studying it and said, oh, there's 5 beats instead of 11 beats instead of 4. And I started slowly really getting into that. And I was way into all the rock music, because we were playing in a funk band. I was way into like Led Zeppelin and Grand Funk and Black Sabbath and later, yes, a lot of the British bands, and along with Kool and the Gang and Earth, Wind and Fire and Express and all the horn bands. So I was combining all this rock and horns. And then there's a trombonist named Al Gray who played with Count Basie's band for many, many years. His son, Mike Gray, was one of the trombone players in one of the local bands. And he went to high school with Kevin at Germantown High School. So Al, when he came off the road touring with Count Basie, he would get us all the musicians in the neighborhood together in the area, and he set up music stands to put music up. He said, y'all need to learn to read music. Of course I can read already, but you need to do these jazz songs and learn standards. And I said, what's a standard? And he said, like, Embraceable You. I remember he mentioned Embraceable You. I had never heard of any of those songs, but I said, all right. it was really nice that he took the interest in
Mm,
at least pulling our coat to what we need to work on and things like that.
mm-hmm,
And he really liked me a lot. And he gave me a horn
mm,
and kind of mentored me along for a little while.
mm,
But he also had uh, a pickup on his trombone mouthpiece,
mm,
and so you had to. He said give me your mouthpiece and I'll hook you up, because I was like, how I was interested in what he could do with it.
mm-hmm,
And but I gave him like an old mouthpiece, because he had to drill a hole in. They had to drill a hole in it, and they put this pickup on top of it, and it was very rudimentary, and it broke
mm-hmm,
pretty quickly. But just the idea of having some an electronic pickup on my horn. Back then, I was a teenager,
mm-hmm.
and it made me think that I might be able to get in with the guitar players and all that kind of stuff. Because I
Mm-hmm.
grew up with a guitar player with Kevin,
Yeah.
and and I was way into Jimi Hendrix, and Terry Kath was playing in Chicago, and Jimmy Page, and I was loving some guitar players. So all these sounds came out, and all these bells and whistles went off in my head, and I said, "This is it. This is it." And I was it was so much fun. I remember that really well. And I said, "This is how I can go back into really trying to use some electronics with my horn by having a mic clipped onto my bell."
Yeah, when you got into playing with effects and pedals, did you start, you said you just started with like a basic clip-on mic. Did you start experimenting with different types of mics, and did you start experimenting like specifically for the trombone players out here? Did you start experimenting with different types of mic? Did you start finding different things that you personally liked about different mics or anything like that? Like what was you started out with that clip on, but where did you end up in the long run? What did you end up going with?
Well, now I still use clip-on mics, just because it gives me a lot. I'm not tethered to the angle of a mic on a stand. So I like the thing I loved about playing with a clip-on was that, well, first of all, when you're playing with he's back. When you're playing with a band, you're like always facing forward, and you can't go off axis so you won't be heard and that kind of stuff. And so when I got a clip-on mic, I was able to turn sideways or turn around and face the drums, and it was go up and down. It was a lot of freedom. And of course, now I still use the mic on the stand, but I use a clip-on mic for my effects. So when I use effects, I use the clip-on mic. And right now I'm using an AMT microphone. But in the beginning, I forget what I was using. I just grabbed anything that clipped on. I wasn't really studying the mics as much as I was studying the effects. I was just into the effects part of it. And then I started to understand the significance of getting a good mic also, if that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks. And I guess that kind of evolved into using multi-tracking and starting to use DAWs and everything like that. Like, I guess that kind of was the catalyst for that, or was there like another movement before?
No, I think it was just using the microphone, the clip-on mic, and just getting the sounds, because it was mostly like live stuff. I was basically only using it live for gigs, and then I rarely practiced it. And I was always practicing just regular acoustic horn. I just practiced it enough to learn how to use the effects, but I never spent a whole lot of time really developing the techniques. I just got the techniques. I learned which techniques I needed to do in trial and error, and then on the gigs. So when things would break down, I said, okay, well, I got to work on that when I get some downtime. But you know, I just started to learn how to use the different effects and learning how to play the effects, and because you know certain effects you can't, the ones that have long envelopes, and you can't play fast passages because the notes get swallowed up and the tracking isn't as precise, or you know, like I have like I would always have like a kind of lead guitar kind of sounds, and that one tracked really well, so I could play fast stuff on that, and I had a couple like spaced out kind of long delays kind of things, and those was more kind of ambient and kind of real space vibe if I wanted to do. And I had a couple of those sounds, and I had one that would like with a bass sound, the octave lower than I was playing, so I could play bass lines in the bass register. And you know, and I was using the looper, a loop pedal, and things like that. So I didn't get into really recording it with DAWs until relatively recently. I did, you know, I would use it on my gigs. I mean, on recordings and things, but not for my home use at that point. But and I do that now for sure. But back then, it was just doing whatever I did on the gig is what I did in the studio.
You know, Robin, I have a clip of you demonstrating some of this. Maybe it's a short clip of you solo trombone. Maybe I'll play this for some folks. If that sounds, it seems like a good moment, we can hear what's happening on this.
I might have some questions, Mike, on the other side.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
Uh, and I'm gonna make sure I don't bogart the questions, but now that I'm back, because I want to make sure we have plenty of time for Q&A. But man, you know, you're playing the drums, the octopad on that, and that was one of the first things when I was in the band that was crystal clear to me was that, man, this dude is a drummer. uh I mean, you might be playing trombone, but it was clear that you were a drummer. There was things that you were doing on that were just like, to me, straight up superhuman, man. Like there was and in fact, there's many folks in this meeting here that uh uh anybody who's been a student of mine, I've said this to Robin before, uh every year we play a 3 to 5 Robin Eubanks tune every year for 25 years I've been a professor. Every single year. Never less than 3, at least 5, you know. And everyone in this, people in this room are at Brannick can attest to that, you know, at the university. They played a lot of your music. But I remember
Cool.
Pentecost is one of them. And the first time it'd be you and Smitty duo playing Pentecost like it's like there's a whole band and you two would never lose. I mean, I couldn't even keep the time. I mean, I think it was about a year. You were like, Mike, just listen. Don't even try to play with us. Just sit and listen. Don't even think about, you know. But I'm just curious, like, man, how on earth, like, how did you, was that something that just you were like, I really wanted, and you were talking about odd meters too. I guess it's part of the similar question, but like, how did you come to that? Like, were you thinking about like, man, there's a rhythmic thing here that I can really find a way. I can push into things that other people aren't doing.
I wasn't necessarily thinking of other people weren't doing it. It's just what I wanted to do. Basically, it was just it was I because I was listening to these a lot of the odd meter bands, especially like Mahavishnu Orchestra stuff. I just really enjoyed playing in these time signatures and and in certain fields. But and one of the things about composition and arranging, which I love, is that you can create your own musical environment. So I liked to create an environment so I could do what I wanted to do, express myself the way I wanted to express myself. Like I couldn't do it necessarily playing all the things you are and and a lot of the jazz standards or any kind of repertoire. So I had to come up with my own songs that allowed me to explore the kind of style that I wanted to play in, which was very rhythmic and odd meters and with combining funk and and jazz and rhythms and all the stuff that I was really into. And so there wasn't songs that I could do that with. So I had to make my own and create my own musical environment. So it was just fun for me to get the chance to play my own stuff because because it allowed me to play and improvise and just vibe in the environment in a musical environment that I created. So I wasn't worrying about what other people were doing. I was just just trying to get to the stuff that I was hearing.
And you know, at that time, like one of the things too that folks here who were students at there's always a Robin Eubanks chapter in any improv class that I do, and then it becomes an M-based chapter. And I remember some of those conversations at the time where, you know, everybody had their you know, what you were doing in an M-based context was not was your thing, and then what Lonnie was doing was kind of his thing, and what Osby was doing was like, but it was still kind of, Embase could kind of bring these things together. But I do remember some conversations at the time where you were like kind of floating between like Art Blakey's band and that sensibility, and then in this a whole other world of Embase. And I just remember some of those conversations too. Like, how many years were you with Blakey?
About two,
Uh-huh.
a couple of years. Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I was with him early on with the big band, and then I was in the sextet for a couple of years. So I had 2 periods where I played with him.
You never found it, didn't, I guess it never seemed like it was a problem for you, like bouncing between these like really distinct worlds.
No, I liked doing all of it. It was just a different. I always when I do lectures and stuff in master classes, I always talk about being multilinguistic. Like you can be socially multilinguistic, you know, because we travel so much. We're constantly in situations where people spoke 2 or 3, 4 languages, while we stupid Americans are just speaking English, and they were apologizing for their English.
Right.
But yeah, you know, so musically, I like being in multilinguistic also. I like being, if it's jazz, I want to speak the jazz language. If it's funk, I want to do the funk language. If it's Latin, it's Latin. If it's, you know, whatever is happening. And the thing that I liked about the band is, which is also one of the things that I enjoyed about your playing and everybody else that I had in the band, was that we could go in and out of different styles. And I would write some of the compositions. I remember it was one of the first ones I did was the song called Indo, that it went from like a kind of little funk thing, and then it would go into swing for about 6 or 7 beats, and then go back into this little groove thing. And I just like being able to, having the music be very fluid like that, where it could just go into different styles. Actually, I remember when I was, the way I came up with it, I remember like in the old radio stations, like turning the dial on the radio station, you hear like a pop song, you keep moving, then you hear like some Latin, you get to the Latin station down at the end, and you go all the way down to the end of the FM, you got the jazz station. So that's the way I was kind of thinking about it, is like, you know, turning the dial on the radio, and you just stop at all these different styles. But when it got to that style, it was hardcore, that style. So I remember rehearsing the band on this song. I said, when we get to this jazz stuff, it has to sound like, it's only for 6 beats, but it has to sound like we've been playing the jazz thing the whole song. So go way into it for just the 6 beats, and then when it goes, so, but then, you know, then the rhythm section got real fluid with it, and elastic with it, so it could just kind of morph into it, so that it almost kind of felt like the same thing, just going through different phases. So and that's the kind of way I was thinking about the composition, and it presented different kinds of challenges for me in terms of improvising over it also. So I did a lot of stuff like that. And like when I was playing with Dave Holland's band, which I played with for 16 years, actually.
Wow.
We
That's crazy.
the compositions that I wrote for Dave's band was similar, and in terms of you know, in the jazz thing, you play the head, then everybody play a solo based on the same structure, and then you play the head and go out. But I would write, I'd had a different section for each soloist, so everybody could get into their kind of vibe in that part of the song. And then when the next solo came, there'd be like a little interlude or something, but it'd be a whole different feel or something like that. So I'd like to present the whole different thing for each soloist, or
Mhm.
or definitely multiple kind of environments for people to play in.
Mhm. Man, let me ask you this. I never in the 20 or however many years we've known each other, and certainly when I was in the band, I never asked this because I didn't want you to know I didn't know. But how the heck, man? I mean, if you is there some information that you can when it comes to these odd meters on some of these tunes, like we all every year we play some of the we play Pentachorus, we play Get to It, and my chart still it's called Elvin, and I always tell the story how it came from that Elvin bass drum part that
Oh
when you
yeah,
were in Elvin Jones' band, and that part he was doing
yeah.
the solo, and in that where the ostinato came from, you know. And inevitably the students will say, "Man, how do I practice this?" And I'd be like, "Man, I kind of don't know. You know, I never really asked him. I didn't want him to know I didn't know. But like, is there some like when students are asking you like, man, Robin, how do I deal with these odd meters and practices? Like what do you tell them? Are there some tips and
Yeah, uh,
information?
I think so. Things that help is when I do master classes or something like that, and people ask questions about odd meters or something, I always mention using like a sequencer or something, or programming like a drum beat. It can be as rudimentary as a bass and a snare, bass drum and a snare drum, and you can kind of eighth note out the hi-hat or whatever you want to do, and a bass line, and and then just listen to it.
Hmm.
Just put it, because the sequencer will just play over and over and over again, and then just start singing to it,
Hmm.
humming, humming through it. And if you can sing through it and hum through it, you're halfway there, because then you're hearing it.
Hmm.
You're hearing it. You start to feel how to subdivide it, and there may be uh, something that's in the bass line that helps you orient yourself inside the time. Like if the bass, um, there was a song I did with for Dave Holland called "Full Circle."
Hmm.
It was like, and for the trombone solo, it has this kind of weird kind of time signature thing, but I can tell if he plays that bass line anyway. I could tell where I am all the time because I know this bass line so well.
Mhm.
So I can just listen to him, and I don't have to count where
Mhm.
I am, because I can tell the bass line is kind of like a clave for me. Or
Mhm.
you start finding, just from listening, having things on the sequencer and having it play over and over again, you just start to find ways to navigate through it rhythmically.
Mhm.
You may subdivide a bar three into two, or whatever. There's all kinds of little things you can do, or it might be a harmonic thing, or it could be a rhythmic thing. But you start to figure out how to navigate through it, and you start just sing along with it and hum along with it. And no matter how intricate or weird it is, and as soon as you're able to start humming through it, and then you're halfway there, then you just have to try to translate it and transport it to your instrument.
Mhm.
And that's a whole nother phase of it. But
Mhm.
but but the first step is, if you can't hear it, you're not going to be able to play it.
Mhm.
I mean, you can kind of fake your way through it maybe, but
Yep.
to really get up inside it the way you might want to,
Yeah.
you really have to know where you are and know how to really deal with the rhythms. And that would be the way that I would suggest working on it, is just put loop in the sequencer, just putting in something real basic, fives or sevens, or however intricate you can program a drum pattern and a bass line, and then just sing over that, and then just trying to play over it. And especially if it's a song that you have to maybe play with a band that you're already required to learn because you're in the ensemble or something. Just you definitely sequence those parts, and you can just sometimes I would just leave stuff on for a half an hour or an hour, and I go in and out of the room, and you just kind of it just kind of becomes osmosis. It just kind of seeps inside you. And you start hearing it in different ways. I've even written songs like that. I would just leave the loop, the sequence playing over and over again. I'd go to the bathroom, go get something to eat, and come back in the room. And sometimes you walk in, and it's on the other. You start hearing it on the other side of the beat. And he's like, "Oh wow!" He's like, "You're hearing something else as one." And then that gives you a whole nother perspective on the same thing. And then I've done that, and I said, well, I'm gonna write another section of the song, hear it this way. And then you got a way that you can kind of combine those two, and it's coming from here and it's coming from here, but then they lock together like that, and you're like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
It's all, just kind of natural kind of mistakes or just things that you just kind of hear from exposing yourself to it a lot.
When you and Smitty or Gene would do these trombone drum duo and you'd play something like Pentecost, there would be periods where you all would be like flying, man. You'd be soloing through it. And it was so clear to me, like it was like that line had become almost like a clave. It that phrase or the piece, it was like it would never leave. You were both hearing it all the time, no matter what side of the beat. I mean, and Smitty, for goodness, I mean, he would just be on any side of the beat he wanted to be,
right.
And it would never throw you, man. Like you would be like, okay, cool, and then you would come out, boom. I was like, how are they? I mean, that's just it. Like it was crazy. Like you had so internalized that piece, those lines, that you had that kind of freedom to it. You didn't need a bass, or you didn't need other people kind of locking it down and playing it. It was crazy, man.
Smitty sometimes, because he would incorporate the rhythm of the bass line sometimes inside the drum part that he's playing, so I could hear that, so that where he was, because he was kind of referencing the bass line or one of the other parts of the song. But the other part, you have to really work at being able to hold your own ground also.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he might be leaning on, there's certain things that they would do, but if they didn't do that, I'd be like, but sometimes you just mess it up. I remember on the Dave Holland records, with this album, What Goes Around. And this, I think it was so it's like 11, pattern 11 or something like that. Yeah, so I forget what it is, but it's something like that. But the song, they're playing it, and then it's like double timing it, and then they got lost. They were like in 12. And then they came back together, and the people were like, how'd y'all do that? How'd y'all do that?
Right.
We just lost. Just falls apart, but you just, just through experience, and this was on the recording.
Yeah.
You just keep going, and then somebody does something, and you lock back in. You hear something or a big downbeat, and then it's like, okay, there's one. So then you're back on the pattern again, and then you're back together, back into 11. And they said, it's like, how'd y'all went into like 12 and those other meters? Nobody knew where anybody was.
Yeah.
But that's all a part of it too. Is you just really, that's the part of the magic and beauty of the music. You just, and playing with, from playing with people, because sometimes you can communicate a lot of stuff with just body language, just going like that, and everybody
Yeah,
just knows, okay, that's the down now, but that's the downbeat.
that's it.
Now we're back on the form, and
Yeah.
stuff could be lost. I don't know where anybody is, and you just got to make something out of it. And those kinds of things are so much fun, and and it creates those kind of situations. People say, "How did you do it?" And you say,
Mhm.
"We're completely lost." That's what we did.
Man, that's what was when I moved to New York in '90, and I met you like I think 3 weeks, about 2 or 3 weeks after I'd moved to real quick, and that same year, started to play. That was the thing that it was it was some of the most fun I'd ever had in life musically for that very reason. It was like these were the tunes, and we were just like on the edge, and things could get where they were, but it was like it was this unbelievable combination of like we knew what we were doing, we knew the form, we knew the tunes, but there was so much that could happen within that space, and everybody was cool. And then I remember that you could give a cue, something could happen, we could just be boom, we're back in. And then doing it, especially if we were doing a tour and it was night after night after night, it got like real intuitive, like, okay, we're now I know what I know what Gene means or Lonnie means or Robin means by that. And now we're speaking on a whole other level. I hadn't experienced that until really New York in those days, playing in M-Bass, but playing with you all.
I think you were in the band where we used to do sometimes. I would like to do a song where it was just total, just start something.
Yep.
And you would start something, or we just make up at the end of the set or something. You had like 5 minutes or 7 minutes. Let's go for something. Just make something up. And hit a groove, little blow on it, and take it out. And good night or whatever. But that's one of the great things about having a band, as opposed to all these kind of all-star situations or throw together. The music scene is very different now, because you call people together and I got a gig, and you might be able to get one rehearsal in, maybe two tops. But we also have the sound check. The sound check becomes a rehearsal.
Yeah.
and so you kind of throwing stuff together, but when you're with a band, then all those kind of things can happen when you a lot of intuitive stuff and the mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I remember sometimes I used to like to also talk about the music after the gig.
Yeah.
Like, what were you thinking when you went to this part? What did and you can kind of discuss. So like next time, if it happens tomorrow night and I go there, then you have an idea of what you can do with it to really develop it. So it's really, and not to mention all the social interpersonal stuff. I mean, you and I have been, which we won't go into, but
so good.
Yeah, where were we?
Right.
But yeah, but that's the difference between a band and kind of putting something together, together to make a gig.
Definitely. Oh man, I couldn't agree more, man. It's so true, man. And just being conscious a little bit of time. Matatape. Yeah. Every year we learn Matatape too, Brandon.
Oh yeah.
Matatape, Get to It, Pentecourse. There's a few.
Bones.
Say what?
Sticks and Bones.
Mm-hmm. We learn
Skin and Bones.
Say what?
I forget. Well, I forget. I couldn't tell what song he was talking about. He said something about bones.
Sticks and Bones. Or it's just you and the drummer.
Yeah, I think it was called Skin and Bones. That's what it's called. Yeah.
Skin and Bones. My bad.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun too. It was just me and Smitty. And I think I used to do something else with me and Billy Kilson and. But I got to doing that stuff because I used to hang out in Washington Square Park in Manhattan just me and like 10 hand drummers.
Yeah.
And I used to just love hearing all those rhythms, and I actually got a chance to do it. I went to Brazil, I think with Terry Lynn Carrington. It was the International Percussion Festival. And she was representing American drums. And then they had percussionists from all over the world, but it was like percussion ensembles. They had, samba schools with like 20 percussionists and people from all over, some from Africa, and all these percussion things. And she's like, it was just her playing drums representing the United States. So she said, I didn't want to go there play by myself with all. She said, you want to you feel like coming to Brazil with me? I said, hell yeah. And it was in Bahia.
Ooh, yep.
So it was amazing. We'll talk about it later, but it was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in the International Percussion Festival with Nana Vasconcelos and Gilberto Gil.
Yeah.
And I was the only horn in the whole festival.
Wow.
Everything was percussion. And at the end of the last day of the festival, and they call all the bands on stage and everything. And so there's like, I don't know, 80 percussionists and me. And then they started, this was like a week after Carnival in Brazil. And then they started walking around the auditorium. And I was just feeling it. And then next thing you know, they went outside and it was going down the street. And all the Brazilian people were coming, people just outside just started following them with the parade. It was all the percussion. So I would tell the cat, somebody, I said, sing one of your songs. I'll play, so they would sing a melody and then I would just start playing whatever they sang. but it was the same kind of thing with just me and a ton of percussionists. And I just so much at home.
Yeah.
I did something like that on my first record, on Different Perspectives. There's a song called Different Perspectives. It had Jerry Gonzalez overdub like 10, 15 percussion parts. And the section was just me playing with him. And I did the same thing on another record. There's a song called Mino. And I had Mino Sanelu overdub all kinds of percussion stuff on that. And then I did the stuff with the Skin and Bones with Smitty and something else with Billy Kilson. So I just love playing with just drums because you gave me a lot of credit earlier, but I consider myself like a frustrated wannabe drummer.
Definitely. There's no two ways about it. Yeah, I mean, you are stand up.
I love all the percussion and the rhythms and stuff. And when I remember when I joined Elvin Jones' band, Eddie Henderson was in Elvin's band, but he couldn't make a gig. And Sonny Fortune was the sax player in the band. So he called me to sub for Eddie Henderson to play at the Regatta Bar in Boston. And I love Elvin. I used to see him at the Vanguard all the time. I got tapes of them when I used to record them, secret tapes of them. Yeah. And of course, all the stuff he did with Train and all that stuff. And so I got to play with Elvin that night. And me and Elvin locked like that as soon as we started playing. And Elvin loved trombones. The first time he ever went to Europe was with J.J. Johnson.
Oh, wow. Wow.
He was telling me how much he loved the trombone. He was talking about this other trombone player named Tyree Glenn. I think he played with Beatty Band also. But after the gig, I said, man, I've been listening to you so much. I love it. Thank you so much. I said, I try to approach the trombone like a percussion instrument. And he said, I know, I heard you. And then he hired me in the band that night.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's how I got the gig, just subbing for one night. But he liked the trombone so much, and me and him vibed so tough together that he just hired me in the band that on the spot that night. And even when I was out the band, he was playing the Blue Note in New York, he would ask me to come down and come sit in and let's have some fun. I really, he's been my greatest influence on drums for sure, and he's my all-time favorite drummer. Yeah, and I've been fortunate enough to play with some great drummers.
Yeah, no, that's for real, man. Let me, and just in time's sake, I'm skipping. I mean, there's so many things I want to ask, but man, you know, you talk about Washington Square Park in New York. We're coming out of this pandemic, man. Like, what I remember, one thing you relative a few years ago, we were talking when you were doing some teaching at Brandon online, but I remember you said something then. It's like, man, we're training students for gigs that don't exist, I think is how you put it. And we were, you remember we were talking about like, wow, these pro jazz programs exist. And I'm just curious about like, what do you think, how you feel? I mean, the pandemic, I'm looking at, we saw the Jazz Standard close and Smalls. I mean, so these venues in New York, I know a lot of arts organizations. I mean, like, what are your thoughts on like, for you, like, what are you looking at next year? And what are you thinking about for jazz music venues? Do you got tours booked? I mean, like what's happening for you?
I don't have anything booked right now. I had a lot of stuff booked for this year and they all got squashed.
Yeah.
I was supposed to go to Israel with Antonio Hart in January, and I'm sure that's not happening. It's this December. No, that's not happening. I've lost track of time. It's been so much. It's been so crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. The one thing I am grateful for is that we finally got rid of Trump.
Yeah.
And that's going to open up some possibilities in and of itself of having things move forward. But in terms of the music scene and the jazz stuff, I don't know. For me personally, I'm just trying to really get into learning all kinds of other stuff. I'm getting deeper into using the electronics with my horn. I'm one of my former Oberlin students, has started a website called horn-fx.com. And he's like way into all using the effects and stuff with the horn. So he's gonna, I'm consulting with him, and he's gonna show me how to use some MIDI controllers, like the MIDI controller pedals, not the keyboards. And that's gonna open up a whole nother realm of possibilities for me with sounds and stuff, with using my pedals and things like that. So I'm still learning how to do that stuff, and I'm learning Logic better and Final Cut Pro. I'm just making my own. Going to be making my own videos, making my own content, and I just got into this Native Instruments hardware called the Machine. With a lot of people use it to make beats for hip hop and all this kind of stuff. So I'm just amassing all this stuff, and I'm really excited about it and using it. I'm still learning how to use everything, but I'm envisioning how all of these things are going to come together in my music very soon. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do with all of it, but I'm going to make some music out of it. That part I am sure, but how I'm going to market it and all that stuff. Yeah. I don't know. It's just a scary situation in terms of, I see now that they're getting the vaccines are starting to roll out. So there's a dim light off in the horizon. at the end of the tunnel. So it's going to end at some point. And I just want to be, I don't want to be in the same position that I was in when this started, when this is over. I want to have something to show for all this time. Hopefully, I mean, we'll never have this much time to work on our stuff. It's been crazy. The last gig I did with my band and live gig I did was in March in Philadelphia at Chris's Jazz Cafe.
Yeah.
And it's December now. It's really crazy. So, you know, fortunately, I've been trying to get other revenue streams. I've been dabbing in the stock market, which has been helping out a lot, and just trying to keep creative on the other end of it. But you know, who knows what's going to happen and how long it's going to take for things to really get back. Back in March when we first had the lockdown and everything, I said, well, by the fall,
yeah,
by the new year,
yeah.
And now it's 3 times worse than it was during the lockdown.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to take a major turnaround.
Yeah.
To get back to where we were when during the first lockdown.
Yeah.
So it's bleak.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what you just got to keep stepping forward and keep moving. You know, fortunately, you know, as you know, I've been a Buddhist for a long time, so I'm still chanting. So I'm very
there you go.
Very positive about everything, and I'm really looking forward. I'm actually looking forward to everything once I amass all this stuff that I'm kind of pulling together with the machine and these new pedals and Logic and Final Cut Pro, and it's gonna be happening.
Nice, right
so
on.
I'm excited for the future. Actually,
I believe that. Are there some? I would have like a whole host of questions, but I've been I could chat with my my older brother here all night long. But are there some folks you all have? Does someone have some questions that they want to pop in?
We had one question earlier when your Wi-Fi went down.
Yep.
But something just popped up. I don't know if that's in the chat.
Yeah, hi. Do you hear me? Hi, my name is Bernd. I'm here from the Netherlands. It's very late here, almost 2 o'clock after midnight. But I was very much interested. Thank you very much for this special Zoom meeting with you both and all the other people here around. Actually, I have a question that is related to improvising. You as a jazz musician, you are very much into improvising all your life. But my question is also related to what you just mentioned. You are a Buddhist, which is beautiful itself a lot as well. But how do you improvise in normal life, especially now during the pandemic? Do you behave different than maybe before the pandemic? Do you have a different approach towards life yourself? And how do you handle this? I mean, like an improviser. Yeah, this is something I would love to hear from you, if possible.
That's possible. This is a great question.
Yeah.
I kind of just answered in a way. It's just I'm using the time that I have. I've never had, for none of the musicians, especially the professional musicians, have had this much downtime. Usually we're traveling all over the world and working and all the stuff that we train to do. But now I have all this. I've had 9 months where I didn't have stuff to do. So I'm trying to train myself to add new skills to what I was doing before. You know, like I said, I'm learning new programs, learning things that I can that are going to enhance my my music and my compositions and things moving forward. And I'm trying to position myself so when things get back to the new normal, whatever that's going to be, that I'm not going to be in the same position as I was before it happened. I want to have other skills that I can bring so I could keep moving forward. And you know, and the other part of it is just really really having faith that things will get better, and preparing yourself for things being better than they are now. Because if you give into quote unquote some kind of negativity, it's hard for you to even motivate yourself to even try to do something, because you're gonna say, why bother? How is this going to help me? Everything's messed up. It's not going to come back. It's going to be awful. I mean, if I took that position, then there wouldn't be a lot of incentive for me to try to progress and develop. But because I'm very confident that things will be better at some point down the line, and it looks like a beginning of the end of this stuff, I'm really excited about trying to what I'm going to be able to present moving forward, and so I'm trying to study and learn and prepare for when things are better, that like I said, so my music's going to be enhanced. I'm going to be hopefully playing better. I'm going to be presenting a whole different kind of aspect to my music, because I'm going to learning all these other things that I'm studying and using to enhance what I've already done. But basically, I'm doing stuff that when I was traveling and touring and all this stuff and teaching, like I was usually do before the pandemic, I was saying to myself, wow, if only I had the time, I would work on this, I would study this, I would get this together. But I was using the fact that I didn't have the time as an excuse for not doing it. And now I have too much time. So it's really making me, you know, live up to what I was telling myself all along, that if only I had the time, I would learn this and I would study this and have this together. And now I have the time, and now I have to do it. So that's my what I'm using to really encourage myself and project myself forward and keep developing, even in the midst of unbelievable situation. I mean, nobody could even have imagined. It's like a sci-fi movie we're living through. You couldn't even have imagined something like this happen. It's like, you know, I had stuff coming to the Netherlands, but I never thought I would have the time when the US passport would be banned.
That's indeed very special.
It's unbelievable.
But the good thing about the pandemic now, that we have this specific talk with each other now. I mean, without, maybe we would never have been this talk together. So we should be grateful for these extras as well, I think.
No, I agree. So, you know, you have to find the positive in the situation, because if you don't find a positive, it's nothing that really motivates you to move forward. It's very easy to be down negative and feel that things are a dead end and why bother kind of things. But so you have to really be very self-motivated to bother, to even make the effort to try, and especially in the face of when things look like when it when it looks like things are kind of borderline hopeless. You have to find hope in the midst of hopelessness. And when it comes, you'll be ready for it. And it's the only thing that's going to keeps your spirits up and makes you want to do something. I mean, I'm working and studying more now than I ever have in a long time, for sure, because I'm really trying to take advantage of having this time to do it. But that was a great question. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your sharing your answer with us. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Are there any other questions?
Maybe Robin, continue with your, what you just explained about working on what you always wanted to work on, during this pandemic. Maybe you can talk about before pandemic and during the pandemic. How do you practice? What's your schedule like? Like if you are, doing, I don't know if you teach, but teaching and gigging and doing everything else, how do you find time to do it? And or like when you have so much time now, how do you motivate yourself? For example, what kind of schedule do you have to get going with your practice?
This is a good question too. Well, the pre-pandemic, I would just kind of do enough kind of maintenance. So I, do my long tones and make sure I warmed up and played my horn every day. But there were so many other things that, especially if you're on tour, you're like subject to whatever the itinerary says, you just have to do. And so that that can make it difficult to even get in warm-ups, especially if sometimes you're traveling like 10 hours to get to the next gig. And then you just have enough time to get to the hotel and maybe the sound check, and then you play, and then you do the same thing again the next day. Or 4 o'clock in the morning leaves and all this kind of stuff. So then you just have to try and find any time that you can. So I have like a minimal thing that I do. Is just, if I can't do anything else, I just do my long tones and my warm-ups, just so I have everything functioning with my embouchure and the air and everything when I'm playing. But now, it took me a minute, because it's a little, when you have so much time, it's even hard to, sometimes that can be even harder. It's like, because it's like, what do I do? I got something I can do, I have time to do everything. And sometimes you wind up doing nothing. But I get motivated from, checking out creative people and checking out things. When I listen to creative music or see people being creative, it makes me want to be creative also. And I try to make myself do a little bit of something every day if I'm working on something. Like I'm trying to learn this machine and the software, and I just bought this big, humongous sound library. So I'm trying, I make myself work on it a little bit every day. And it just gives you, once you start seeing some progress, it's kind of self-perpetuating. If you give in to the negativity and don't make progress, that's what's going to make you not want to move forward. But as soon as if you start seeing some progress, if you set a goal, like I'm saying, I want to learn, Logic or something. And then I signed up for this online course to learn Logic. And then I started learning how to do stuff. And then when I was doing, I'm done a lot of master classes for colleges and things, and I use Zoom, but I've incorporated Logic into the Zoom so I can demonstrate the electronics and all this other stuff that I'm working on. So once I found out that I was actually able to do that kind of stuff, and people are sending me tracks to record a solo, they say, well, can you play a solo on this track that I'm working on, or play this trombone part? So now I'm able to do that using Logic instead of having to go to a studio or something like that to do it. So because I'm seeing the progress there, it's really encouraging, and it makes me want to learn it more. And I'm trying to learn Final Cut Pro, like the clip that Mike played before I did in my apartment. And it was the first time I had ever used Final Cut Pro. And I edited on Final Cut Pro, and I was like up all night looking at YouTube videos and all kinds of stuff to figure out how to do stuff. But I did it, and I was like, wow, I can do this. So now I can do this. So now I want to make my own videos. I bought a green screen, the background, and all kinds of stuff. I don't know what to do with it yet, but I'm gonna find something to do with it. But a lot of it is a lot of self-motivation, because you turn on the television and you hear about now 300,000 people. This is even hard to even say. 300,000 people have died from this COVID, and it's so easy to get depressed and not do anything and just feel bad. But it takes a lot of self-motivation to feel good and feel positive and want to work. And I was telling somebody in the Buddhist meeting, I had a Buddhist meeting the other day. It's like I haven't worked. I've been basically unemployed for almost 9 months, which is unbelievable. But I'm I've been fortunate, and I'm doing well anyway. I'm making some money in the stock market, and it's just a self-motivation that makes me want to do better. And now you see the ending is in sight, and I want to be able to present a lot of stuff moving forward. So, I make myself practice, and I do, like I said, I do a little bit every day. I work on my trombone, and I'm working on Logic, and I'm working on learning this machine, and I'm getting this new. I'm consulting with this guy on how to use more effects, using this MIDI controller pedal for my electronic. So I'm really excited about the possibilities. So a lot of it is a lot of self-motivation, but nothing motivates me more than just being around creative people or seeing creative things. So I seek stuff out online, or a great movie or something that just inspires me, or listening to music. I remember during Charlie Parker's birthday, the WKCR in New York, they played like 3 days of Charlie Parker, and just listening to Charlie Parker play nonstop was so inspirational for me. This is like in the 40s and 50s. It was just unbelievable what he was doing. And this, he was like 30 something years old or something, playing like that. And so it's just hearing him play was so inspirational. And I made a playlist that I was listening to every day, and I'm just hearing Charlie Parker play every day was inspirational, and it made me want to practice more. So you just have to find things that inspire you to do stuff and to keep moving forward, even though things look so bleak or whatever. It's not going to be bleak forever, and you don't want it to think the pandemic to be over and then you're still back where you were before. So there's still time. It's going to still be a few months before everything starts getting better. So now there's still time to really improve yourself and get self-motivated and getting practice schedules together and writing stuff down and make yourself encourage yourself and find other kinds of encouragement through other creative people online and or wherever you find them. So
Thank
I hope
you.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I just have very quick question. What after the pandemic? What's your like dream that you want to achieve after pandemic?
I want to put together all the stuff that I'm working on right now, and I'm going to do some recording and stuff. And I'm really excited to see what the music that I'm going to come up with at the end of all this stuff, because I have all these new things that I'm trying to add to my music, and they're not all put together yet. But I'm really feeling that something's coalescing, but it hasn't coalesced yet. And I'm real excited to see what happens when I start working on these new pedals and these new sounds that I'm going to have, and this new the machine and all the beats and things that I'm going to be able to put together. I think it's going to be great.
Looking forward to it.
Oh, am I? Whatever that's going to be. I don't know what's going to be yet, but I think it's going to, I'm really, really, really excited about the possibilities. And it's so good to see you again. Hope we get a chance to play together.
Of course.
Cool.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah. Hey, Robin. It's a pleasure. It's funny that you mentioned self-motivation, because I feel like I've been shedding now more than ever. And it's not because of like we have extra time on our hands. It's just I know that the gigs post-COVID are going to be straight fire because everyone's practicing right now. So that's always in the shed, man. You mentioned something that kind of really caught my ear, and I'm curious how much you know about it. What's the word on this MIDI controller? And Horn FX, like what does it do, and where can I find one, and can I afford it?
There's horns. I think it's horn. I guess they call hyphen or dash fx.com. These two students, former Oberlin students, started the site, and they research and learn all this, how to use all these horn effects. All these. What do you play, by the way?
Saxophone.
Okay. Yeah. So one of them is a sax player and one's a trumpet player. And so I was just talking with him. So he was I got some endorsements from Eventide, this company Eventide, and they gave me 2 of their H9 pedals. And they do some amazing stuff. There's a sax player, Bob Franceschini, who plays with Victor Wooten's band. We're all good friends. And he had been telling me about these H9s. So Victor and Bob gave me the contact numbers for the people that Eventide, and I got in touch with them, and they said, "Oh yeah, we'd like for you to check our stuff out." So they gave me 2 pedals. And I'm still learning how to use them exactly. But then I asked my friend, Aaron Janik is his name, is a trumpet player. And he said, because I was like pushing the buttons on one pedal, then I had to push another button on the other pedal to create the sound. But he's telling me if I use this MIDI controller pedal, I can push just the MIDI controller pedal and it'll control both of the pedals at the same time to create. And so it's like hitting one button to control both of the pedals so I can get the sound that I want without hitting one and then going to the other one and hitting the other one. You know, it's just gets convoluted and it's slow, but this way it's precise and I'll be able to, he said, and I could be able to set up banks of sounds instead of, I have like about 8 sounds that I use now, but I can have like I have like one kind of, what should I call it, like a lead sound, like a lead guitar or lead keyboard, whatever you want to call it. But I can have a whole bank of those sounds now instead of one of them, and a whole bank of ambient sounds. And, you know, so it's just going to open up so many possibilities. And it was, I've been reading about it. The one I'm getting is called a Morning Star MC8. And they make a lot of them. There's just so many MIDI controller pedals out. But the Morning Star, I think they're based in Singapore or something like that. And I couldn't find a store to buy it. So they sell it online only, but I just bought it. They just told me they shipped it. I should be getting it Friday. So next week I'm going to get together with Aaron and have him coach me on how to use it. So I'm just really excited about the possibilities of what that's going to open up for me in terms of sonically on using my effects with the trombone, in addition to the composition stuff like I'm doing with this, like I was saying, with this machine with all the library of sounds and the beats and things. It's going to be so dope. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really excited to really write and play and see how to use all this stuff. And I can put it all through Logic, and which I've been learning. So everything's kind of coming together. So I'm really, and it's really good that you're self-motivated, because if you don't do it, nobody's gonna do it for you. Can't nobody do long tones for you. I wish it was. So you just got to put in the time. But once you start seeing the progress, it's kind of self-perpetuating. When you feel that you're improving and that you're doing something today that you couldn't do a week ago or a month ago, and that in and of itself is going to really encourage you to keep going and keep trying stuff. And so I love learning, and it's, you know, I'm kind of bitten off more than I can basically chew during this time period. I'm trying to learn Logic and Final Cut Pro and this MIDI controller pedal and this machine stuff. Is like, where's all, you know, but it's coming together, and each thing is kind of helping the other things that I'm working at kind of spiraling. So I'm feeling like I'm on a really, really, really positive path. And I'm just so encouraged and excited to see where it's going to lead me. And I can't wait to hear the music that I come up with.
Can't wait to hear that either. Man, Robin, I see we've gone over. You've been super generous, brother. Are there any other final questions that folks, somebody might have? This won't be the last. Robin, I love you, man. I do. I miss you. It's just, I can't thank you
It's
enough.
so good to see you.
You too, man. Just, brother, thank you for this. It's phenomenal. I could keep going. I have like a million questions I've been wanting to ask for years. So this was finally a minute to sit down, and I can't thank you enough for it. So Robin, thank you, man. Just phenomenal.
And I'm hopefully I'll get to come play at the Dakota or something like that, and we can hang.
That's it. Oh, we'll
That's
make that happen.
That's one of the main stops on the tour.
It is. That's right. Everybody too, thank you all so much for coming by. It's great to see you all. We have people from, that's awesome. We had Netherlands, we got Boston, we got Brandon, we got Minnesota. Not too bad. Thank you all so much.